Good morning. This is an IELTS speaking mock test taking place at B-Ghud Academy. My name is Abhishek Saji Matthew. I'm your speaking examiner for today. My ID number is 563221. The IELTS speaking test is divided into three parts. In today's test, before each part, I shall give you a brief introduction. Before we begin the actual test, may I know your full name, please?
My name is Alfonso Vargas.
How may I call you?
You can call me Alfonso.
Alfonso, can I see your identification documents, please?
Sure.
Thank you so much. There you go, Alfonso.
Thank you.
Alfonso, where are you from?
I'm from Nilgiris. It's a small district in Tamil Nadu.
Right. Without further delay, let's move on to part 1 of your speaking test. Here on this part, you can expect many personal questions. Let's begin this part by talking about your hometown. What's your hometown famous for?
It is famous for eucalyptus oil and tea plantations. Many tourists visit my hometown in order to explore the hilly areas and valleys in the area, and also to buy eucalyptus oil specifically. And homemade chocolates are also famous.
Right. What are some of the recent developments that took place in your hometown?
Owing to the pandemic situation, there are no many developments that have happened in the last 2 years. However, in case of health sector, there are few clinics here and there to help the villages to tackle the problem.
Okay, now let's talk about headphones. Alfonso, do you like to use headphones?
Definitely, whenever I'm listening to music or watching movies, during that time I like to use headphones because only then I'll be able to focus on what exactly I'm listening or watching.
Right. Under what circumstances would you not prefer to use a headphone?
When I'm surrounded with people or if I'm talking to somebody else, in that case I would avoid using headphones because I feel it is disrespectful to do that, and I'm not a person who does something like that. So I respect people, so I would avoid headphones during those situations.
Right. Now let's talk about concentration. When do you think it is hard for you to concentrate?
Whenever I'm multitasking, I have always felt that. For instance, if I'm trying to cook something and at the same time if I'm listening to music, I may not be able to concentrate well. I'll only be focusing on one thing. So basically, when I'm doing something parallelly at the same time, that's when I have felt this way.
Right. What may distract you when you try to concentrate?
Generally, when I'm doing something, if I get a notification in my mobile phone, I have the tendency to check it at that same time. Then I get carried away with it. So this is one thing that distracts me often.
Okay. Alfonso, now let's talk about wild animals. Have you ever seen wild animals?
Of course, I've seen many times. Whenever I travel from Mysore to Nilgiris, that's my hometown, on both the sides of the roads, I've seen many wild animals, for instance, peacock or a wild bear, something like that. I've seen many times.
Right. What's your favorite wild animal?
That would be lion because of the magnificent and the ferocious look it has.
Right. Okay, Alfonso, that's the end of part 1. Now let's move on to part 2 of your speaking test. Here on this part, I shall first give you a question and you will have 1 minute time to prepare an answer for this question. You're then supposed to speak on the topic for about 1 to 2 minutes. Don't worry about when to start or when to stop. I shall tell you when to start and I'll tell you when to stop. You can also note down certain points on the paper provided if you wish to. Alfonso, your preparation time starts now. I want you to talk about an exciting book that you read. You should say when you read it, what kind of book it is, what it is about, and why you think it is exciting. Okay, Alfonso, your time is up. You can start speaking now.
I'm not a voracious reader. I read books once in a while. Because of this reason itself, I have only read a couple of books in my life. There is one book that is very interesting, that is The Alchemist. It is written by a Brazilian novelist. His name is Paulo Coelho. This book is one of the world's best sellers and is also popular among all the age groups. When I was studying in college, my brother suggested me this book for the first time. But during that time, although I have read the entire book, I did not understand much about the whole idea of the book. I completed reading it, nothing much. But then the second time, during the pandemic situation, I had an opportunity to read it again when I was with my sister-in-law in Bangalore. That's when I realized there are many inner meanings to the whole book. So this book is an adventure fiction, which is a fast-paced, dangerous journey which is depicted of a young boy with a thrilling climax, of course. This book gives a sense of excitement to the readers throughout the journey. It's about a shepherd boy's journey. The boy's name is Santiago, in search of treasure from Spain, which is the homeland of that boy, to Africa. So during this journey, he meets several people and also his love of his life, that is Fatima. There are several facts that I like about this book, which is exciting. But two important points is, the first one is, there's one famous quote from the book: magic happens when you don't give up. The whole universe conspires you to achieve it. And the second one is, the journey is as important as the destiny. And I feel that both of them are very true in my life also. As I already mentioned, I read it for the second time in the pandemic, and I was facing many difficulties during that time. Maybe because of this book, I got inspired and I never gave up on that time. I was not being that productive or not being very successful at that point of time.
Okay, Alfonso, your time is up. You can stop now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfonso, for your experience. Apart from the book that you've mentioned here, have you read any other books from the same author?
Yes, I tried reading Drida, but then it was not that successful. I dropped it in between.
Right. Okay, Alfonso, that's the end of part 2. Now let's move on to part 3 of your speaking test. Here on this part, I shall ask you some general questions. How do you think reading can help children?
It can help in several ways. First of all, it can develop imagination among children, and also at the same time being creative. For instance, when parents read books to children, they will definitely have to imagine about the story. By this way, they will be able to be creative and also imaginative at the same time.
Right. Do you prefer book or movies?
I prefer movies because of the visual effect, the main reason. Books are very boring for me. As I already mentioned, I'm not a voracious reader. I read once in a while. In case of movies, it's very interesting because there will be more songs, background scores, and the visual effects itself is very interesting for me.
Do you think it is important to read a book before watching the movie version of it?
Not really. It is not relevant to read the book. There are people who does so, but then I feel that reading a book before the movie will ruin the suspense element. That wouldn't be preferred. I don't think it is relevant. There are people who do that.
Do you think boys and girls like the same kind of books?
Not really. Boys are more interested in comic books, whereas girls are interested in more of fantasies, and where they can imagine and being creative. That's what I have found.
Do you think compared to the past, people read a lot nowadays?
Particularly during this pandemic, I've seen more people are showing interest in reading books and magazines because they have more time. They don't have much time to they don't spend much time commuting. Rather, they are sitting at home, working from home. So they have more time. So I feel they spend more time reading.
Okay, Alfonso, that's the end of your speaking test.
Thank you.
Alfonso has done a pretty good job to answer the questions that I asked her. Now let's analyze her answers in depth. As you know, this speaking test is assessed based on 4 criteria. The first one is fluency and coherence, grammatical range and accuracy, pronunciation, and lexical resource. Alfonso stated answers cohesively. Her answer was related to the topic, and she did a pretty good job to connect sentences together. She was very fluent throughout the speaking test. From the beginning in part 1 till the end, she showed very minimal signs of hesitation. Such kind of hesitation is actually accepted for the speaking test. She never paused to think for a word. Instead, in order to think for ideas, occasionally she made short pauses. So, I can give a score of 8 out of 9 for fluency and coherence. Now let's look into grammatical range and accuracy. She constructed these sentences properly with minimal grammatical mistakes. However, she didn't use different types of sentences. She rarely used a complex structure, so that limits her score again to 8 out of 9. She was spot on with her pronunciation. All words were naturally pronounced. Also, she did a pretty good job to maintain her tone throughout the conversation. So, I would mark her 9 out of 9 for pronunciation. Now let's analyze the lexical resource part of it. She has done pretty well to use a wide range of vocabulary. However, she didn't use a lot of idioms. Usage of idioms naturally can boost your score, and she could have obtained a 9 out of 9 for lexical resource if she had used a lot of idioms naturally. So, her score for lexical resource is 8 out of 9. I would give her an overall band of 8 out of 9 for her performance. In this context, I wish to remind you to use idioms properly, and this should never sound artificial. Remember, no one can jump from 6.5 to 9. Improvement is a slow process. You have to first aim to improve your score from 6.5 to 7, and from 7 to 7.5, and so on. If you are an above average speaker and if you speak naturally, you can then think of using idioms and phrases in order to boost your performance. Here is a challenge for you. Comment below the mistakes that you can spot when Alfonso gave the answer. Thank you so much for watching. A sub to our YouTube channel would be amazing. Stay tuned for more videos.